Okay, guys, I lied. There's one more TV show I did want to mention. Joss Whedon as well. Dollhouse. Back when Dollhouse came out, I have the DVDs in the back, by the way. I just didn't go back to get them after I filmed the initial video. Back when it came out, I don't know how I heard about it. Maybe just because I heard Josh Whedon was involved and he had just finished up with Angel. And it stars Faith from the Angel and Buffy TV show, Elijah Dushku. And it's pretty much these people are in a facility, and every day they wipe them clean and then give them abilities or memories and then send them out again to do something else. And eventually they're trying to figure out who they are and what's going on. And all this crazy stuff goes down. Sort of, no, I would say it is. It's like a cyberpunk TV show, but it's got a lot of just normal science fiction type elements. It was excellent. And I have really great memories of coming home. I want to say it was a Wednesday night, but it didn't have to be. I'd come home, I had a computer in my back room where my dining room is now. I'd sit down and I'd make a huge, this is when I was overweight, I'd have a huge pound of macaroni and cheese and I'd make it from scratch, not like out of the box or anything. And I'd eat macaroni and cheese and watch the newest episode of Dollhouse on Hulu when Hulu had like free episodes. Dollhouse was every week. So I would go every week and watch the newest episode, and Stella would come over, my cat, who's since sadly passed away, and she would eat the macaroni and cheese with me, and you wondered why she was overweight too. And we'd watch Dollhouse on this huge, big CRT, like 27-inch computer monitor in my office, I guess, at the time. So check out Dollhouse. Some people, who like Joss Whedon or Cyberpunk will talk about it, but you don't hear about it very often. I would totally recommend Dollhouse. Thanks, guys, for watching. Again, it's still Vampire Mike. Be good. Hey guys, it's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. So I was going to do a video about my top 10 favorite films. I've spoken about them so much over the past few years, and I did a video response a couple of years ago for my buddy Joe, X Corn Muffin X, of my top 20 favorite films. So I figured, well, what can I do that's a little different? So I decided to do top 10 favorite TV shows, and I have a few extras that are runner-ups. I'm not a big TV guy anymore. As a kid, I really was. Sort of maybe a little bit as a teenager, but I kind of fell off at that point. I'm a big movie guy. But these are some of my favorite TV series. The only one I'm really missing that I don't have on DVD that I love, two of them actually, Quantum Leap and the show Taxi with Christopher Lloyd and Danny DeVito and um, what's the guy's name? Tony Danza. So those are some of my favorites as well. But so we're gonna kick this off. Huh, Oz. So if you haven't seen Oz, it's an excellent, gritty um, show about prison, Oswald Penitentiary, aka Oz. Great show. I think it went for about 8 seasons, possibly. I have them all on DVD. One of the discs is manufactured wrong, so it skips during one of the episodes. I don't remember which one, but it's a great series. Gritty, a little too much, male nudity, but it's a rough show. That guy who does all the commercials for the insurance with the bald head, I just saw him in the movie Dark Skies a moment ago. I can't think of the actor's name. He is in this, as is the other insurance guy. I think one's Nationwide and one's Geico or something. Anyway, he's in this, and I have never looked at him the same again because he was like this insane skinhead. Um, Lots of great actors. Is it Chris Maloney? I think Christopher Maloney's in this, if I recall correctly. Um, Ernie Hudson, the woman who played the wife in The Sopranos. So lots of great. I think it's Chris Maloney. I always mix him up with. Yes, it is Chris Maloney. So check out Oz if you haven't seen it. Another one of my favorites is Twin Peaks. This is a great series about who killed Laura Palmer. This is season 1 and 2 on DVD. Hopefully one day I pick this up on Blu-ray. Season 3 I really was not keen on, so I may pick that up and just rewatch it at one point, but I'm not sure. Um, Very quirky, weird, strange TV show. Um, Lots of interesting things happening, and it's sort of like a murder mystery, but there's like aliens and weird shit happening in this town, and it's hard to explain. But if you like weird, quirky movies or TV shows in this case, check out Twin Peaks. I think it takes the cake for that. Lots of people have tried imitating this over the years. The closest it's come, I would say, is probably the video game Deadly Premonition on the PS3 and Xbox 360. Very similar to this. This one I found out through a friend at my old job years ago, and this is from the UK. Can't get the case to go back in, but The Young Ones. This is a really silly, over-the-top slapstick type comedy about these four guys that live in a dorm in England, and they rent an apartment or whatever. They go to college together, and each of them is very different. One's very straight-laced. One thinks he's like, the bee's knees. One guy's like a drug addict, and he's really silly. And the other guy's like a crazy anarchist. And it's all their interactions. Very silly humor, very over the top. Alexei Sale is also in this as a side character, and he's a very funny, goofy comedian from the UK. But and the guy from Drop Dead Fred. So what's his? I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Rick Mayall, whatever. But they're all pretty famous, I think, still. Check this out. If you like British humor, it's really, really good. Another one of my favorites is Sanford and Son. This is a great show about Red Fox and his son who own a junkyard. You know, goofy shit's always, not goofy, but stuff's always happening with the neighbors and with people knocking on the door and friends and whatever. Um, and then there's like this relationship between the father and the son. If you've ever heard the term "you big dummy," that comes from this show. And this was back, this and like Good Times and Archie Bunker and the Jeffersons. I love all those shows because this is a time when people weren't so serious. They would say stuff in this like make fun of whites, make fun of blacks. They would use derogatory comments for different races, and there's like a Spanish neighbor. I forget his name. It's either Jose or Juan. Very stereotypical, and they like tease him, and everyone just had like a little bit better of a sense of humor on things. So I really love Sanford and Son. I think it's very funny. Red Fox is probably milder in this than he is on his stand-up routine, where he's really filthy in general. But great series. Check this out if you like old 70s and 80s. This was in the 70s, but 70s and 80s type of like no holds barred sort of humor. So this is a funny one. Angel. I'm not really a fan of Joss Whedon anymore. Both politically and just in general, he sort of rubs me wrong. I feel like he has a big mouth, and his movies lately just don't do it for me. I'm not a huge fan of his newer stuff. That being said, I thought this was an amazing TV show. I know it's a little airy fairy, kind of teeny bopperish. I saw this before I saw Buffy, and I just really love this show. I like Buffy, but this show I thought was way better. I thought Buffy was sort of that teenage years, and this sort of had more of a 20-esque, 20-ish year old type of feel to it. So big fan of these characters, big fan of the actors. I followed them over the years, um, and yeah, I always liked Doyle in the TV show. Glenn, I can't think of his last name right now, but great TV series. Another one of my favorites from the 80s is In Living Color. I have a few of these on DVD. Again, slapstick, goofy, silly humor. A lot of it has references from the 80s now, but they would also make fun of black, white, everything. It was over the top. Nobody got really offended. Everyone thought it was funny. This is where Jim Carrey got his start and the Wayans brothers. So Damon, Marlon, Keenan Ivory, Sean, all of them started here. Check out In Living Color if you like really silly 80s humor. Another one of my favorites, as I drop all the DVDs on top of Beth, is the IT Crowd. This is the second season. I have all the seasons on DVD. I think did the last one come out on DVD? I don't know if it did. I think the last one was just like Netflix only or something. And that was my least favorite. It sort of like came back years later and it wasn't as good. But this is another British show. I caught this on TV and I just bought all the seasons and really liked it. It's a British show about these three people that are in the IT department of their building, and there's always something crazy happening. The boss is really nuts. One guy's really Moss. You may have seen him in other movies, and Chris O'Dowd. Chris O'Dowd. Um, he's in a lot of films now too. He's from Ireland, and it just shows all like the funny things that can happen when you work in IT. I used to work in IT, so some of it did relate. Some of it is really off the wall, but really funny British humor. Check out the IT Crowd. One of my favorites as a kid was Parker Lewis Can't Lose. This is a high school like sitcom um, with Billy Jane and Corin Nemec, uh, Troy Slayton, and I can't think of his real name right now, but he was in ER. And it's just a really funny, like Friends type of, not Friends the show, but friendly type of, high school uh, comedy, whatever. About girls but over the top, very silly. Um, there's like everyone sort of has this persona, and they're all different. And the principal's like a bad guy, and the little sister's like a pain in the butt, and she's sort of bad. Um, it's kind of hard to explain, but if you like 80s, early 90s, it's from 90, 91. Parker Lewis Can't Lose is excellent. I would also recommend Pete and Pete, which is another one of my favorite shows, but I don't have that on DVD. My favorite cyberpunk TV show, Max Headroom. Max Headroom was an interesting show that was sort of the first of its time for TV series, at least. It's this guy who's a TV reporter. This came out in 1987, I believe. This guy who's a TV reporter, Matt Frewer, that's the actor, hits his head, and they take his, not his soul, but his personality and put it into a computer. And that's Max Headroom. So he's still around, but Max is with them, sort of helping them solve things and do different, like, quests, so to speak. Um, Lots of cool, interesting, like, visuals and dialogue. If you're a cyberpunk fan and you like, The Matrix and Nirvana and Johnny Mnemonic and whatever else, I would recommend Max Headroom. It's silly, but it also has some interesting ideas, especially back in the 80s. Nobody had really heard of this. The Max Headroom incident was pretty interesting, where in real life somebody hacked a TV station and dressed up like Max Headroom and was like doing all this silly shit on screen. They never found out who did it, but it's a federal offense. So that was always interesting. But check out Max Headroom if you're a cyberpunk fan. And finally, one of my other favorite TV shows as a kid, when I have a few seasons of this as well, is Night Court. This is just a really silly, like, comedy, but it does have that like buddy friendship kind of thing going on about these people that work in a night court, the judge, the bailiff, um, the lawyers, and they some of them care about each other and date, and some of them date other people, and like the little sort of back and forths, but goofy. It's fun. It's not like there's not too much series happening, though there are moments about, like, cancer and relationships and loss of friends and death and whatever else. So there is some of that in there. But Night Court is definitely one of my favorite TV shows. Anytime this is on, or if I find like a season in the thrift store, I always pick it up. It's just it's really fun. John Larroquette was in this. He was probably, I would say, one of the bigger people from this show, and Richard Mall, who was in was he in one of the Highlanders? He was in something. He's in a lot of stuff too. These are sort of the bonus TV shows that I like a lot, but they didn't quite make the cut in terms of my favorite. Um, I'll go through them quickly. Beavis and Butthead, great cartoon, really silly, over the top. This came back years later with another season, and that season's really great too. Usually, when they come back years later, they're sort of missing a step, but not Beavis and Butthead. Another one is Beretta. I would also put Kojak in this vein. It's a cop show. Kojak was probably a little more, I don't want to say serious, but maybe cooler in a way. He had that lollipop, and he would say, "Who loves you, baby?" Beretta was a little sillier. He used to say he was Itralian instead of Italian, or Italian, if you speak normal. And so sometimes you'll hear me say Itralian as a joke. He had this bird named, I want to say it was like Frankie, Frank. I don't remember what his bird's name was, but it's Robert Blake. That's not his real last name. He was in Our Gang before. I think it was Little Rascals. He was the one who supposedly murdered his wife and got off on it. But great TV series. Has that like 70s and like 70s vibe to it, like Kojak. But I think I might like this one a little better than Kojak. Wonder Chosen. This is probably the most whacked out of my favorites. It is a puppet show with cartoons and like weird movie scenes in it and kids interviewing people, and this is extremely difficult to explain. It's very intelligent, but once you watch a few episodes of it, you can't really watch a lot at once because there's so much happening and so much going on and like sort of messages that are thrown in subliminally and not subliminally that you can read into about everything from races, religions, kids. I mean, excuse me, hiccups. This is a very strange, sort of degenerate type of TV show, but it is very, very messed up and very funny. Um, give this a whirl. It is not for children. Another one I always really liked that I didn't think got the love it deserved was Code Monkeys. This used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it is anymore. It's this little like 8-bit TV show that these people made with like little characters and like a crazy boss, sort of like IT Crowd. And it was like set in the 80s, and there's like they mentioned Dungeons and Dragons and video games, and just like a nerdy sort of love letter, but everything looks like an old video game. Check out Code Monkeys. And finally, another one of my favorites that Beth could not get into, so I never really finished it with her, but I had seen it prior years ago. The Tick with Patrick Warburton. Um, this is just a great comedic TV series. If you've seen the old cartoon, I like this better, but the cartoon is really good too. They now rebooted this on Amazon, and I tried watching it. I really couldn't get into it. I thought that the character wasn't as good and it wasn't as funny. Lots of like back and forth with the characters, and the Tick is like a big oaf, and he's really stupid. So he says and does a lot of things that are funny in this show. Check it out if you haven't seen the Tick. I would definitely recommend this. But yeah, those are some of my favorite TV series. Uh, Let me know, guys, if some of these are your favorites as well, and if I missed any that maybe you want to recommend. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Be good.